Hey everyone, welcome to It Tastes Different Gaming Appetizers. What are we talking about this time? Well, a couple things. First, we have the Activision Blizzard acquisition deal going on, and right now it's blocked by the FTC. And so a lot of stuff is coming out of the woodworks about the whole goings-ons with Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo and kind of Microsoft's look on those things and kind of what they think about stuff and internal documentation and all that good crap. So, the first thing we'll talk about here is the PlayStation. There's been talks about PlayStation 5 having a mid-gen refresh. It's been out on the internet. There's been some rumblings here and there. Microsoft says they will not be releasing a mid-gen refresh as it already has one. Now, you might be thinking, when was this? Did I miss the memo? No. No, you did not. I think we all missed the memo because none of us got this. So, as spotted by WCCF Tech, in the latest episode of Digital Foundry Weekly Podcast, provided players with this information. So, in the episode, the outlet noted that Microsoft said that the Xbox Series X is the mid-gen refresh by Microsoft. When it was first shown, the only thing they decided to do was release it ahead of time. So the Xbox Series S is actually the standard console for this generation of consoles by Microsoft, and the Xbox Series X is the upgraded version for it, which also explained that the Xbox Series S and X values are equivalent to the previous generation, i.e. the Xbox One S and the Xbox One X. The only difference this time around is that instead of releasing one after the other, Microsoft released both versions together. So, like I said, we got a couple things to talk about, but we'll stop there first and just talk about this one, and then we'll move on to the next topic that kind of coincides with this. But I call shenanigans on that. Pat, what do you think of Microsoft's mid-gen upgrade?
There's no way in hell that the Series S was their current gen console pick. That thing's barely better than the One X. And Sony would have ate that thing for breakfast. The PS5 would have ate that thing, crapped it out with room to spare for more. Microsoft is smoking something right now, and they're smoking the not so good stuff because that's the most idiotic thing I've heard. The One X and One S were mid-gen refreshes of the One. I mean, so they can't even compare that. That's like very stupid because the One X, the One was the generation, the start of the generation, and the One X and the One S were the mid-gen refresh. They just offered a cheap version of the One S. It was a cheaper. Was it the One S? One S? Yeah. I mean, besides the fact that's freaking stupid. I mean, Microsoft is losing a little bit of touch, and I'm just glad Phil Spencer wasn't the one that said that, right? I don't think he was the one that said that, was he? I thought it was like their chief or something that had said that, but that's the stupidest thing I ever heard, in my opinion. That that they decided just to release them at the same time. If that was the case, they deserve to be where they are, because that's like back-asswards thinking. We're going to release this super underpowered console, but have this other one in the wings that we're going to release 3 years later that'll be so far out of date, Come on, guys. Do you think we're really that freaking stupid? I don't know what's going on here, but they're blowing smoke up the wrong tailpipes, because I don't believe it for one damn minute. Hopefully nobody else does, because there's no way in hell that they just said, we're going to release the mid-gen refresh that we've already developed now at the same time we release the regular console, and then just say, oh, that was our mid-gen refresh. I guarantee you Sony is coming up with a pro version sometime in the next year or two that's going to come out. I mean, that's what Sony does. Sony is the king of getting people to buy a console again, right? I mean, Just look at what they did when they had the PlayStation Slim, the piano, this and this, the freaking version this and version that. They're the king of getting people to rebuy consoles. And Microsoft kind of did this, kind of tried to jump on ship with the whole, we got the Series X and not Series X, but the One X and the One S. I hate Microsoft naming convention. It's like somebody hit somebody in the head with a bat too many times, and that's what the numbering came up with. I hate it. I don't know. I am flabbergasted to think that Microsoft actually thinks that we believe this. And if it's true, they need to fire whoever's idea that was, because why would you develop a mid-gen refresh at the same time as your base console and not just make that your base console? Like, I understand making a value console and making a premium console. That makes more sense to me. Like the S, the value console, the X, the premium console. Sony, discless, was somewhat of a, I wouldn't even call it a disc, I wouldn't even call it, it's the same console just without a disc. So, I mean, Sony just decided to sell a digital versus a non-digital and a discless and a non-discless, I don't know, man. I am completely flabbergasted by this topic that came out of there. Like, I don't know. I can't believe it's true. If it is true, my mind is drooling on itself trying to wrap my head around this, going, what? I feel dumber for thinking and reading through this article.
Yeah. And, when Microsoft showed off the Xbox Series console, they showed the X off, not the S. It wasn't like, oh, we got this S, and they showed it off and like, oh, look how cool it is. Oh, we got this other one here. It's, whatever. It's more powerful, but this is the Xbox, right? This other one, it's a mid-gen refresh out now. Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it.
My ass.
Mid-gen. I mean, here's the thing though. If Sony decides to do a mid-gen refresh and Xbox doesn't, that's going to be, because think about it. I mean, I think on a technical specification scale, the Xbox is more powerful than the PlayStation 5 as far as specs and things like that, right? Not by much, but it is. But if Sony comes out with a PS5 Pro or whatever, equivalent to like what Xbox did with the Xbox One X compared to the Xbox One, right? Does quite not what PlayStation 4 did with the Pro version, because that wasn't much of a upgrade from the original. But if they do a hell of an upgrade, like Microsoft did with the One and the One X, then Microsoft does nothing, right? I mean, that could possibly blow Microsoft right out of the water with the Pro version of the PlayStation, and then you got developers possibly and consumers possibly jumping ship that aren't already a part of the Sony ecosystem, right? With that mid-gen refresh. So,
because what reason would you do if that was the case and you were on the fence? And I'm not saying everybody that goes to buy consoles on the fence, right? Some people know they want to buy a PlayStation. Some people know they want to buy an Xbox. But if you're one of those people who haven't bought a Series X or a PS5 by now, because they're both widely available, so you haven't bought one, you're one of those people that will probably just buy whatever console you think has got the better games and is the better console. So what reason would you have to buy the Series X when you have the PS5 Pro or PS5 Premium or whatever they're going to come out with, and it's close to the same price? Like, if it's only a $50, $100 price difference, you're probably going to be like, I want the more powerful console. So, because Sony by far has the best games out right now, exclusive games that Microsoft does. So why would you do that? That to me makes absolutely no sense. I mean, the tech disparity between the S and the X is so great. I mean, you're talking like more than double the cores between the Series X and the S. We're talking about 12 teraflop GPU versus a 4 teraflop. We're talking about 0.2 gigahertz slower cycles. We're talking about a console that is nowhere near. And to think that they would put that against the PlayStation 5 just blows my mind. I don't think that is true 1 second. and they're just blowing smoke up everyone's ass because I don't believe it. I don't believe it for 1 second. My mind, if this is true, whoever came up with this is drooling on themselves in a corner somewhere.
If the Xbox Series S was the flagship console and that's all that Microsoft came out with compared to the PS5, you might as well just say goodbye, Microsoft, at that point. I mean, goodbye, Xbox, not Microsoft. They sell other things besides Xbox, but goodbye, Xbox division, right? I mean, it would be
you would
gone.
say, did you try
Yeah.
Microsoft Xbox? Did you even try?
It's like, you can get this barely upgraded Xbox, which is the next gen, right? Or you can get this PS5, if it was a Series S only, and then the PS5 would blow it out of the water. Like today, the odds of the Xbox Series S still being out in the wild, I mean, more than likely what would happen is Microsoft probably a year after that or something like that, or even less time, would have a premium console out on the market. That S would be out there for like no time, like a very short period of time compared to the PlayStation. And then you would have a premium like an Xbox Series X out on the market in no time flat, because they'd be like, oh no. Because you think about Game Pass, you think about just the console in general, but also Game Pass, right? Those things wouldn't flourish I don't think, to what they are today without having the Xbox Series X. Because if you just had the S, I don't think it would have taken off. Game Pass wouldn't have taken off. Everybody would be having a PS5, and there'd probably be next to nothing coming out on Xbox, and it would pretty much just be a dead thing. Like they would have just put the nail in their coffin and called it a day if the S was the only thing out. So
they would have been so far behind, they would have never caught up.
Right.
Because people are like, why am I going to buy this severely underpowered console? I mean, it's severely underpowered comparing processor, they're closer. Comparing memory is where you start to get a little bit more disparity. And then when you compare GPUs, it's like night and day. It's like night and day difference in those two. I don't get it. And I can't remember. Can the Series S do 4K gaming? I don't think it can, right? I thought it was 1440.
It's a 1080p machine.
1080p. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I thought the Series S could do 1440p at max, but I think it's.
I mean, it might be able to do 1440, but I thought it was out there as just a 10.
Sony would have ate Microsoft's lunch. There wouldn't, and I agree with you. There probably wouldn't be another red version of Xbox if they came out with that against Sony.
Yeah, it'd be done for them. Be donezo. So
they'll become less powerful than the Switch.
Yeah. I mean, even for us, we like all the consoles and everything like that. But I mean, if the S was the only option against the PS5, would we have an S? I don't know. We probably would have all gotten PlayStation 5s and Switches, and that'd been about it.
We would just still be playing on our One X's for anything that's exclusive.
Right.
Because they're just now starting to stop that, right? So we wouldn't have a reason to upgrade.
Right. Yeah. But they would have came out with a more powerful one if that were the case. So next mid-gen refresh my ass. And if Sony, like I said, if Sony comes out with a mid-gen refresh here in like a couple years and Xbox doesn't, that might hurt them as well. But you know why that hurts them? Because Xbox is consistently in third place. And they pretty much came out and said, we've lost the console wars. So, like I said, the FTC stuff, the court battles going on over the $69 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard, and Microsoft had claimed that Xbox has officially lost the console wars. In a section of the document submitted by Microsoft describes its entry into the gaming industry in 2001 with its original Xbox console, which was outsold by both Sony and Nintendo by a significant margin. And per Xbox, it hasn't stopped losing the console war ever since. And that is true. They with the Xbox 360, they were doing really good against Sony, but in the end, Sony's PlayStation 3 still ended up beating out lifetime sales of the 360 even. And the 360 was a great console. Xbox console is constantly ranked third behind PlayStation and Nintendo in sales. In 2021, Xbox had a share of 16%, while Nintendo and PlayStation had shares that are higher. I don't know. They were redacted in the document, but clearly Xbox only had 16% of the share of the market. So Sony and Nintendo had quite a bit more. Xbox console has constantly ranked third behind PlayStation and Sony. Like I said, basically, Microsoft goes on to say that they argue that they're betting on a different strategy by generating profits through game sales rather than console sales and selling its consoles at a loss. Hoping that users will go out, buy these consoles, and then therefore they can sell you software, especially with Game Pass and things of that nature. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. Right now, the FTC is blocking the Activision Blizzard merger. Right now, I think they're currently in court. So a lot of this stuff is coming out, kind of, the inner workings of Microsoft and everything. But, the FTC is seeking to stop the merger due to concerns it would allow Xbox to dominate the games market, in part by making games such as Call of Duty Xbox exclusives, something that Microsoft has denied they would do. Now, that's not to say that they wouldn't. I think it would be stupid for them to do that because they probably get more sales putting it out since it's such a large game, right? And it's already kind of an established franchise. Now, that doesn't mean that in a couple of years, it couldn't become an exclusive to Xbox only, right? And PC. But I think right now it's not. But Microsoft is kind of shooting back at them saying, hey, we're third place. We're always third place. This isn't going to make a difference, right? Even if we get Activision Blizzard, it's not going to make us go from third to first or from third to second. We're probably going to still remain third place, and that's probably true. Even if they get Microsoft or even if they get Activision Blizzard, I don't think that's going to make a huge dent in their, in the console war space of things. Sony's dominated that market forever, and they continue to dominate that market. And, it's mainly because of what we've talked about before. Their console exclusives are top notch, and no one else has been able. The only creator out there of the big three that's even come close to, having that same high level of first party titles is Nintendo, right? Nintendo comes out with, their games are cutesy, their graphics aren't as great as Sony, but they're good games, right? They come out with a new Super Mario or something like that, or Metroid or a Zelda, and everybody and their mom's playing it, right? Microsoft comes out with something and a handful of people are playing it, right? They just can't catch a break. Their biggest contenders, Halo, they haven't been able to do good with once it's gotten to 343. The best thing they've had besides the Forza games has been Gears of War, and the last Gears of War, which was great. And it's been some time since we've seen a new one. So right now they're just kind of peddling nothing. And, Starfield's going to be hopefully the big one for them from their now first party studio being Bethesda. But we have some stuff coming up in the next year. But, again, that's still not going to, they don't have that hit, right? Like Uncharted or Last of Us or, Spider-Man or
Horizon,
God of War or Horizon. They just don't have that hit. I don't know. What do you think, Pat?
Microsoft gaming division is in a precarious spot. And I don't buy into the whole lost to console wars concept that they put out there. I think they're playing the woe is me card to make this sale happen. But I honestly think this sale needs to happen for them, because if Microsoft stops making consoles and games, the people who lose are the gamers. Because if Sony is the only contender, You have no innovation. You have no reason to keep prices low. Xbox and Sony keep prices low because of competition. Microsoft selling consoles at a loss, Sony selling consoles at a loss is because they're competing with each other. I guarantee you, if Microsoft wasn't in the picture, you think that PS5 would have been the same price it is now? I'd say, Jack, add $200 to $300 to it. That's where it would be. I honestly 100% believe that. And anybody that doesn't, you're smoking the fanboy pipe. Because they both waited on each other to see what they were going to do their price point of their console was initially. Because they didn't want the other one to be lower than them. And it's because of each other. So once one of them goes out of business, the other one is going to take advantage. I don't care if it's Microsoft the survivor or Sony's the survivor. They're going to take advantage of the situation. That's what companies do. No competition, bad for consumers. You think Game Pass would be as cheap as it was if they were the only game in the market? Do you think Game Pass would exist if Microsoft was the only game in the market? Oh, hell no, it wouldn't exist. We know it wouldn't exist. Or if it did exist, it'd be like a $30 to $50 a month freaking program. But I think that those two keep each other in check. And Microsoft's gaming division isn't as profitable as Sony's gaming division. Microsoft and Sony both operate outside of the gaming industry, right? Sony Entertainment, Microsoft, Sony, the parent company of PlayStation, and Microsoft, the parent company of Xbox. They are not in just gaming. So they have other sources of revenue, but Microsoft's gaming revenue is not what Sony's is. And if Microsoft decides to pack up and say the gaming division is not profitable for us to do anything but make games in the future, like they're like, we can make games and we'll do that, but we're not going to make a console. Then Sony has won, and Sony will start selling their console for the premium of $999.99. $999.99. That'll be something stupid like that. Or it'll slow down their innovation. Instead of having a PlayStation 6 by 2028 or whatever, then you'll have it in 2035 because they have no reason to pump out consoles. They're like, this one's good enough. It'll last. It's fine. We don't need to put so much money into R&D to pump out another one. Or what they'll find out is that every time they come out, it's $1,000 every 5 years and you can't afford it. I think if one of them goes under, the gaming industry will be worse for wear. Because then it's just complete anti-consumerism all around because they don't have to compete. But I wholeheartedly believe Microsoft needs this to stay relevant because the studios they have now, what they got with ZeniMax was pretty good. They got some good studios. They're just slow rolling the games too damn slow right now, which we'll pick up in the next year or two, plus. But they need some more things to drive people to their console, and I'm under no pretenses or false pretenses that Microsoft will make most of that console exclusive. I know they will. I think there will make concessions for like the big titles, like they're Call of Duty or whatever they're fighting over. They'll make concessions because that's a really popular game on both. But I think there'll be more exclusives in the lines of like new IPs. I think most new IPs will always be exclusive, or the majority of them will be exclusive because it drives more people to their console. But the things that roll out every year, every other year, that's just like what I call this the shovelware of current consoles because it just sells like Call of Duty, Warzone, all that stuff. All that stuff to me is shovelware because it just comes out every year and it's nothing different. They add a couple new skins or a couple new things. It's all just shovel it out as fast as you can, and it's the money maker. It's the money maker for those studios. Battlefield and Call of Duty are just money makers, and Microsoft would be kind of stupid to make that an exclusive because that's not a console decision game for a majority of people. Now it probably is for some, but not for the majority. What do you think, Nick? What do you think? Microsoft needs this, or do you think they'll be all right without this purchase?
I mean, it would definitely be beneficial for them to have it. And yeah, and I agree with you too. I mean, it would be beneficial for the sake of competition, to have a little bit more under their belt. right? Because they don't have those heavy hitters, like I was saying. And I agree with you with with the majority of Activision Blizzard games, they will be exclusives, except for those games that come out every year, like Call of Duty and, probably Diablo and, those kind of those bigger titles that they know they can throw on everything and they're going to get more share from that. But those kind of one-off titles and stuff, they'll be like, yeah, those are exclusive to our console, right? So that I think will be the case. But you're exactly right about, the whole, you read online and you see these people that want Microsoft to fail or want Sony to fail. And you're exactly right. If they do, then yeah, that PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X isn't going to be a $500 machine. It's going to be an $900 machine when it came out. Because, and some people, again, like you said, the fanboy smoke, they'll still smoke it and say, no, they would never do that. Of course they would. You don't have a choice. If you want it, that's your only option. And if that's the only option, you'll pay whatever they tell you to pay. Right? And you think, well, people then won't buy it. They don't care. They're the only option. We're the only shop selling this thing. So we can make it whatever price we want. Because if you really want it, you'll go buy it. Otherwise, if you don't, you don't. Right? I mean, that's just how it be. But yes, the competition, because they're not in competition. Microsoft and Sony are not in competition with Nintendo. Nintendo's doing their own thing. So they don't really worry about them. But what Sony's worried about is Microsoft, because they know, even though Microsoft's been in third, they know that Microsoft could potentially, if the stars align and all that good stuff, they could catch up, right? And they know that they're heavy competition for them. But that's good for us as gamers, right? Like Pat said, that's good for us. That keeps prices lower than they would be. And that keeps innovation, services, features, things we enjoy and we like, and new games and all this stuff and pushing the envelope and all that good stuff that we like. That's what keeps that competition alive. It's kind of the same thing like with, even though, you kind of actually saw it with NVIDIA and AMD Radeons, right? NVIDIA was kind of going in we're top dog. We don't give a crap what we sell our graphics cards for. And AMD came out with Radeons that were priced much better. And everyone was like, NVIDIA kind of went, ooh, and lowered their prices, because they were kind of like, uh-oh. Because that's their competition, right? That keeps NVIDIA coming out with new consoles every year. Same thing with like Apple and Samsung, right? Samsung is Apple's competition. That's why every year you get a new phone. It's not because one thing is because they do want to sell it because there usually isn't much upgrades, but that keeps the ball rolling with these things. Otherwise, phones are expensive enough, but if you only have one person selling and creating phones, you're going to have a very expensive phone. And not much innovation and advancements and things like that. That's why competition's good for the consumer, because it gives us innovation and pushes things and keeps prices lower than, even though stuff's still expensive, don't get me wrong, but it keeps prices lower than we would be spending. So, they are going to be third place, but I'm ultimately for the Activision Blizzard merger, like, I don't know, the whole blocking with the FTC and everything. There's some shady stuff going on with this merger and this Activision, and like everybody blocking it coming in, especially the FTC here in the US all of a sudden decides that they're going to block it at the last moment. And then now they're going into court and all this stuff. Like, it makes me wonder if Sony bought Activision Blizzard, would we be going through the same thing? I just don't feel like we would. Right. And it almost seems like the FTC and some of these other things are just throwing stuff at the wall, hoping it sticks. Right. Because some of the stuff the FTC talks about, like they talked about, them dominating the market. It's like they don't dominate it now. Why do you think Activision Blizzard is why Sony dominates the market currently? Because they're multi-platform? That doesn't make any sense. That's not the reason why, right? And so even if Microsoft gets Activision Blizzard, they're still, sad for Microsoft, but they're still ain't going to dominate the market. I think Sony's still going to be top dog, regardless if they have it or not. So,
yep. Microsoft has made too many mistakes in the console stuff to make top dog. Now, on the software side, they may. I think this would help to push them over the top, but I also think it will help. I also think it will help keep their console alive longer to catch up, because I do think I don't think this merger would be enough to push them past Nintendo to take second place. I could be wrong, but I don't think so, because they've been on the Activision Blizzard's been its own thing for a while, and it hasn't had it, and they don't even put anything out that's on this Switch, do they?
I'm sure they do.
Not brand new. I don't think they put anything brand new. I think everything comes to them like down the road, whatever. So I don't know. I feel like Microsoft needs this more than Sony doesn't need it to happen, but Sony doesn't want Microsoft to eat any more of their pie than they already are. Microsoft's eating 16% of that pie. Nintendo's eating whatever, as they redacted all the information. I think Sony's probably eating 60% of it, and they don't want to go down to 50% of the pie or whatever. They want that pie all for themselves, and they'll put up with Nintendo because Nintendo's not really a threat. Nintendo's not a threat to Sony. It's not a threat to Microsoft. They don't play in the same arena. I mean, Nintendo's off playing in the sandbox by itself, and Microsoft and Sony are fighting over the monkey bars, or something.
Right.
I love Nintendo, and I like the stuff they put out. I mean, but I think that they get to do what they want. They don't innovate because they don't have to. We don't have a Switch Pro because they don't have to. If there was somebody else playing in the sandbox with them, they would have to. But Microsoft and Sony have no ambition for the sandbox. They have ambitions for the monkey bars, the jungle gym, whatever they want, whatever your euphemism is you want to pick. But they're not in the same arena. All three of them aren't. They're thrown in the same arena as revenue because it's all gaming, But that's like throwing the Steam Deck in there, or the Steam streaming thing in there, or the Nvidia
or the
Shield
Ally or something.
Yeah, or one of those other ones that the VCS from Atari. They're not in the same arena, so Microsoft needs this. Sony will still exist if this happens, as much as what Jim Ryan and them they're all crying about it. It will be fine. They'll lose some of their pie. They'll have to innovate and find ways to get it back. I mean, I think it'll be a good thing for Microsoft to get a little bit of a leeway on this, because it'll cause Sony to innovate, and it'll cause Microsoft, if they want to keep up, they got to innovate. It's basically sink or swim, and it's right. And if one of them sinks, we pay for it. We'll get eaten by the shark. Is what we will be. Just like Nick said, if they're the only current gen console in the market, because I'm never going to count Nintendo back in that unless Nintendo comes out of the blue left field with this massive freaking console to compete with both, and a list of games that just rivals. If Zelda came out looking like GTA, I would be like, well, okay, here we go. But that's never going to happen, But Microsoft needs this so that Sony can innovate and Sony can play nice for a while. Sony's getting back into their we don't care about gamers phase. All we care about is that you pay me. Sony is pay me now. Microsoft's like, I want some more of that pie, please. So the way we're doing it is we're gonna appease the gamers by, I wouldn't say it's pretending to be consumer friendly, but being more consumer friendly. Because if Microsoft didn't have Sony, they wouldn't be consumer friendly as they are now. No business would be. Greed rules the world in that type of stuff. So, I think Microsoft needs this, and I'm in agreement with Nick. Somebody's doling out some money to the FTC, and it ends with Sony, and ends with PlayStation. I think somebody's got money somewhere, or somebody's whispering in somebody's ears or something, because this ain't going to put Sony out of business. It's not going to give Microsoft a monopoly on anything, which is what this whole antitrust stuff is supposed to be about, creating monopolies and unfair advantages. but this isn't creating any type of unfair advantage. You've got a company that's 16% of market share versus a company that's over 50% market share. Where is the antitrust in that? Even if Microsoft took everything that they owned and made it their console exclusive, I highly, highly doubt that's going to pull away a lion's share of the market from Sony. Could be wrong, but I don't think there's enough of that out there, because as long as Sony's putting out bangers like God of War and Horizon, they're going to be in the market, because I bought a game. I was not always a Sony. I didn't have a PS1, PS2, anything like that. I got a PlayStation 3 for Horizon. And then I've been playing their exclusives ever since. You know, I got Last of Us and all that stuff. I didn't play Last of Us before when it first came out, but I saw a game that was a console seller for me. I didn't even really own an Xbox at the time. I was just a PC gamer only. And now I'm like, hey, I got a PlayStation. Now let's check out this Halo and Gears of War on Microsoft's console. So I don't think that if this goes through and every game studio that Microsoft has turns exclusive to Microsoft and PC, it's going to hurt Sony. It'll take away some of their pie for sure. But do I think it's going to take away 30% of their pie or 40%? I don't even think so.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think so either. They're just crying wolf. And you're exactly right. They don't want Microsoft to have any more of the pie than they have. So they just want to take it away from them so they don't get some small portion of pie from it, right? Because, yeah, they're not going to take them over. You know, Sony's got too many heavy hitters out there, and Call of Duty ain't one of them. So, all right, you got anything else you want to add to this? All right. Well, thanks for everybody for watching. Make sure to let us know down in the comments below. What do you think? What do you think of the Xbox Series X and the S, with the X being the mid-gen upgrade that came out at the same time, the S, and the S being the flagship? All right. And then of course, this whole Activision Blizzard merger with the FTC going on right now, and, you know, Microsoft being in third place. You know, what do you think about it? Like, what do you think is going on with that? You know, and what do you think? You know, clearly Sony's got something to say. What do you think they're you know, what they're trying to get at here? You know, I think overall, you know, Pat had the right idea. They just don't want them to have any piece of the pie, right? Any more than they have. And so they just want to stifle that portion of it. But, you know, hopefully it gets passed through, and then Microsoft has Activision Blizzard and we can move on to other things, right? As consumers. But let us know down in the comments below what you think. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell notifications to stay up to date with new videos that we do all the time. And we'll see you next time.